Good morning again. I'm Soraya Diassi-Kofelt, and I'm honored to be here. It's such a pleasure to be present to see the 8th grade class graduate and the kindergarten class graduate. It's so touching. I'm so happy and so proud of you all for your accomplishments. I'm going to be speaking today about the surprising truth about how literacy changes lives and communities. And I do have some very important photographs I wanted to put up. They're up. Okay, good. All right. Yes. You heard what Bishop Harrison said in introducing me, that I have 2 advanced degrees, a law degree, and I also have a master's degree. I'm a children's author. I've been a judge. I've been a lawyer for many years, a very successful small business owner. And I give credit for all that to 2 things. First of all, I was about 8 years old when I accepted Jesus into my life, and I've been a Christian since that age. The Word of God has been my rock and my foundation ever since, and it's been a firm foundation. The second thing I give credit to is to my mother, who taught me to read when I was very young, and therefore my passion for literacy. It was my mother who taught me to read at the age of about 3 years old. She wasn't a teacher, she was just a mother who felt that education, and especially reading, was very important for all her daughters. So she taught me to read, and I started first grade when I was 4 years old. And I was ahead of all the other students in my class. Why? Because I could read. And I see the kindergarten students, and I can tell you who's a reader and who's not. Right away, I can tell who's a reader and who's not. And it's because of her teaching that I was always ahead of other students in my class. And I continued on reading. My parents pushed reading. My memories are of my parents, my father, and my mother always reading. And of course, my sisters and I reading. And it was reading that really helped me to become valedictorian of my high school class, and then to go on to college and then to law school and come back home. What is literacy? Literacy is the ability to read and to read well. The first photograph I have up is of President Barack Obama. Here is the most powerful man in the whole world, the most busiest man in the whole world. And what is he doing in this photograph? He's taking out his precious time to read to children. Why? Because he knows the importance of reading. He himself is an avid reader. He's an author. Just like I am an author, he's an author. And he loves mentoring to children. President Obama is a wonderful mentor to us, of not only a loving husband, but a dedicated and affectionate father. But he should also be a mentor to us as a reader and what you can accomplish as a reader. So here is a very important man taking out time to read to children. And he said once that during his time in the White House, whenever he would get very hectic and very troubled by what was going on, he would take time, leave the White House, go to a room by himself, and what would he do? He would read. And he would read about what other presidents did. And this is what kept him grounded. I'd like to move on to the next photograph. Here is a picture of another very famous man who's known as the father of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. And what does this picture show? The father of South Africa, the man who led the movement against the racist apartheid government and freed his people in South Africa. What is he spending his time doing? He's spending his time reading and reading to children. One of the most famous quotes from President Mandela is this: education is the most powerful weapon that we can use to change the world. So I've shown you the photographs of these 2 great men because I want to make a very strong influence on you, and to leave you with their pictures in your mind as to why we should be stressing reading and how reading and literacy can change our lives and can change our communities. I told you about my own personal life growing up and my parents stressing reading. As a mother, I have 2 sons, and reading was always very important to them as well. They are now young men in their 20s, and they love to read. They carry books with them everywhere. They go into the barber shop with a book, or they stand at the Subway sandwich shop with a book, and people see them reading. And I tell my sons, you are mentors to a young generation of men and women. And it is cool. It is cool to read. And that's what they're mentoring. They're mentoring that as a young person, it is cool to read. According to the most recent Virgin Islands Kids Count data book, and that is the data that's compiled of all the research that is being done on our children and the statistics. This is the statistic I want to leave you with, which is very shocking. At the end of 3rd grade, almost half, 43% of public school students do not read to grade level. And most of those students who scored low were boys. According to the report, research shows that 75% of children struggling with reading in 3rd grade remain poor readers throughout high school and are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school than students who are proficient. And why do they test the students at the end of 3rd grade? Because when the students go on to 4th grade, it's no longer learning to read, but reading to learn. And unfortunately, you have 43% of our students who are not reading well or reading to grade level at the end of 3rd grade. They're promoted to 4th grade, and then they continue to fall behind because nobody is there trying to pick them up to have them read to grade level. And they continue on until into 11th grade. The statistics are 60% do not read to grade level. And when I was a judge here for 6.5 years. That's what I saw. I saw coming into the courtroom are young men. They were either teenagers or young adults. And they were suffering from what? Poor literacy skills. Typically, a young man would become unmotivated in school, drop out, get involved with criminal activity, and then be right into the court system. And as a judge, I felt that my role, my job, my responsibility was to help as much as I could to turn their lives around. But if I'm dealing with someone who has poor literacy skills, a judge does not create literacy programs. So it becomes more and more difficult. People think judges have a lot of power, but we don't create programs. So that's the difficult position judges are in, judges who have good hearts and want to help, especially the young men, to turn their lives around. Can we go on to the next diagram, please? I have this diagram because I want to show you the true impact that literacy has on our lives and on our communities. Did you know that literacy, again, the ability to read well, affects how rich or poor you are? If you can read well, you're going to be able to get a good job and earn a good living. If you cannot read well, your ability to get a good job is very low. You're going to earn less money and not be able to support your family or yourself. Secondly, literacy affects how much our community can develop. How prosperous are we economically? How much corruption do we have? It all depends on how much and how well the people in the community read. Studies have shown year after year that the countries, states, cities that are the most corrupt, the people do not read well. The areas where there is more transparency, less corruption, are the areas where the people have a high literacy rate. That's what studies show, and those are the facts. Also, communities, states, countries where the people have a high literacy rate, their economy does well. Again, this is what studies show. Corruption deters economic growth because people do not want to invest in areas that are corrupt. So again, you have the direct correlation between literacy and corruption and economic prosperity. If you look at the diagram, you see also that literacy affects your health. And how does that happen? If you can read well, you're able to find the right doctor, find the right medical assistance, be able to speak with the doctor, question the doctor, research before you go in for any type of medical procedure, and not just rely on what is being told to you, but you could research and read for yourself and make your own decisions about your health, as well as knowing what to eat, eating better. And then literacy leads to gender equality. This means equality between men and women. And how does literacy impact gender equality? Because the more you read, the more knowledge you gain, the more you realize how important it is for women to be in the workforce, for women to have equal pay for equal jobs, and for women to serve in different positions throughout the private sector as well as the government sector. So literacy has such a deep, strong impact on our lives and on our communities. I would like to tell you about an incident that happened. It was a very life-changing event for me. I was able to travel to 5 countries earlier this year. One of them was South Africa. And I made it my point to go to Robben Island, which is the island where Mandela was imprisoned for 18 years of his life. I wanted to go and see for myself where he lived, where he was imprisoned, and try to understand what he went through. Robben Island is a small island off the coast of South Africa, about 45 minutes by ferry from Cape Town. I took the ferry from Cape Town, went to Robben Island. Over its history, Robben Island has been known to house political prisoners. It has a maximum security prison. And again, that's where Mandela was incarcerated for 18 years. I took the ferry over to Robben Island, got off the ferry, and then took a short bus ride around the island. And then the bus dropped us off right outside the prison. A guide met us to give us a walking tour. The guide's now at the prison no longer is operating. It's a World Heritage Site, and only tourists come to see what it is all about. So the guide for my group, and for most of the groups, are former prisoners who are incarcerated there at this maximum security prison. The guide for my group was actually imprisoned there. He was a member of the African National Congress and had been arrested. He was brought to this maximum security prison and tortured. And this is him telling us the story. He said that he was stripped naked and placed on an electric chair and tortured. He confessed to everything he did and everything he didn't do, because he wanted the torture to stop. And he told us, as he continued to give us the tour around the facility, about apartheid and the racism that existed then. Just outside the maximum security prison is a limestone quarry where President Mandela and other political prisoners did hard labor. And this is a picture of the quarry. Just think about him working 18 years in this quarry. If you look far in the back is a cave. And in that cave, our guide told us that Mandela and the other political prisoners would eat their lunch and would go to the bathroom. And after years of being in that cave, Mandela came up with this ingenious idea. He was very educated, he was a lawyer, but all the other political prisoners were of different professions. Some were teachers, some were plumbers, some were electricians. So Mandela came up with this ingenious idea. Why don't we start teaching each other what we know? And that'll help us grow while we're in these terrible circumstances. And it was called Each One, Teach One. So in the middle of those harsh severe circumstances that these political prisoners were in, they were able to teach each other and keep each other going. Each one teach one. So when I heard that from the guide and the passion the guide expressed, it touched me. And I said, why can't we do that in the Virgin Islands? Why can't we as a community turn the Virgin Islands around by each one teaching one, but take it now to literacy? Each one of us take it upon ourselves to teach a child, teach an adult, help a child or an adult to read. Because we know that literacy, the ability to read, can change our lives and our communities. So I bring that to you. I bring that to you, 8th graders, mostly. As you go on to high school, think about that. Think about our community now helping each other, and each one of us looking to help and benefit someone else who needs to learn how to read or just wants you to sit a few minutes and read a book to them. That's all it could be, is a few minutes reading a book. I believe we can make a major change in our Virgin Islands if we adopt this same idea of each one teach one, each one help one. So in closing, I want to again congratulate the graduates. You had such grace and stamina being up here. I'm very proud of you. For the kindergarten students, the Val and the Sal, as I mentioned, I can tell who are readers. I go throughout the community and I read to students in elementary schools at Head Start programs, and I immediately know who are the readers. Why? Because they will stand up, they can speak well. And that's what we should raise our children to be, our readers. And it's up to us as adults or young adults to help children and to help others learn how to read. Thank you very much. It's been an honor speaking with you.